I was standing in my kitchen, the morning sun spilling across the marble countertops like it had something to confess. My phone buzzed again, vibrating against the glass surface with that sharp, irritating sound that instantly tightens a woman's jaw. I glanced at it, another message from my sister, Brianna. "Ava, we need to talk. It's about the wedding again." Of course it was. I smoothed the cuff of my silk blouse, the soft fabric cool against my wrist. I'd been getting ready for a virtual meeting with a client, but suddenly my entire body felt heavier, like old memories had grabbed my shoulders and pulled me backward. I gave my family $55,000 for that wedding. Money I earned with sleepless nights, swallowed pride, and more grit than any of them ever bothered to see. And then, "Come without your husband," for words that still tasted like betrayal. My chest tightened, the way it always does when I remember how I felt reading that message the first time. Like someone had driven a nail straight through the center of my loyalty. My phone buzzed again. This time a voice note. I stared at it, the screen reflecting in the glossy surface of my nude lipstick. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear Brianna's voice, but I tapped play anyway. "Ava, please. You'll want to hear this. Things are getting complicated." Complicated. They always got complicated when someone wanted something from me. I took a slow breath, brushing a strand of auburn hair behind my ear as I walked toward the window. Outside, the city looked calm, beautiful, unaware. I pressed the phone to my chest. "This time," I whispered, "I'm not the Ava you used to know." If I'm being honest, the whole nightmare started 2 years earlier, long before the wedding, long before the $55,000, long before anyone whispered the words, "Come without your husband." Back then, I still believed family meant safety. I was 26, newly married to Jacob, and still naive enough to think that love alone could bridge the cracks in my family's foundation. I remember sitting at my mother's dining table, cheap white wine in my glass, tension in the air so thick I could taste it. "Brianna's wedding is coming up fast," my mother announced, smoothing her blouse like she was trying to iron the anxiety out of the room. "And she needs help." I smiled because supporting family had always been my default setting. "What do you need?" My father leaned forward. "Money, Ava. A real contribution." I felt a pinch behind my ribs. "How much?" They exchanged a look. The kind parents share when they know they're about to overstep, but are too comfortable doing it. My mother cleared her throat. $55,000. My jaw slackened. I actually laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. But the silence that followed wasn't soft. It was suffocating. I felt my pulse thud in my neck. "Mom, Dad, that's not a contribution. That's a down payment on a house." "She's your sister," my father snapped. "And she deserves the wedding of her dreams." "And you think I don't deserve to keep the savings I worked for?" His eyes narrowed, sharp as broken glass. "Don't start. You earn well. You can do this." My hands trembled beneath the table. It wasn't a request, it was the entitlement, the expectation. As if my success existed for them to carve up whenever they felt like it. Jacob squeezed my knee under the table, grounding me. His steady presence was the only warmth in the room. I swallowed hard. "I'll do it," I said quietly. "But I need you all to understand, this is a big sacrifice." My mother nodded, but her eyes didn't soften. Brianna didn't say thank you. She just looked relieved. That was the first crack in my trust. Later that night, as I sat on my living room floor, receipts and budgets spread around me, I felt a deep ache twist through my chest. Doubt. Hurt. Something heavier than disappointment. That's when I pulled out the small wooden keepsake box my grandmother had given me before she passed. Inside was her old silver locket and a folded note in her shaky handwriting. "Never let them shrink who you are. Your heart is big, but it's yours." I held that locket in my palm until the warmth of my skin softened its cold metal. I didn't know it then, but that tiny piece of silver would become my anchor. And soon, I would need it more than ever. After that day with the locket in my hand, I made a decision that would quietly reshape my life. I was done being the family ATM, done being the person whose success existed solely for other people's convenience. I packed my determination into Jacob's small SUV and moved into a modest apartment 2 blocks from the city center. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Everything I built from that point forward, I built for me and for the life I wanted with Jacob. I started small. Freelance work, consulting, odd marketing gigs. At first, I questioned myself constantly. Was I good enough? Could I actually survive without the family cushion I had always relied on? Some nights, my fingers trembled over my laptop keyboard, eyes burning from staring at spreadsheets until 2 a.m. But each little success became fuel. My first paying client was a boutique owner who believed in my instincts. My first profitable campaign was for a small startup that needed someone willing to take risks, and every win felt like a brick in the wall separating me from the Ava who existed only for other people's comfort. I found a mentor in a woman named Claire Hastings, a seasoned entrepreneur who ran a boutique investment firm. She saw something in me, an ambition paired with compassion that could be powerful if nurtured. Claire never sugarcoated things. She told me my ideas were good, but my confidence had to catch up with my talent. She guided me through financial strategies, investment opportunities, and business acumen that I had never had to learn in my cozy, well-to-do life before. There were days I felt crushed under the weight of self-doubt. I would sit at my desk, the locket around my neck, thinking of my family's dismissive smiles, and I would almost call them, almost tell them I needed help. But then Jacob would walk in, exhausted from his own work, hand me a coffee and say, "You've got this." Don't give them the satisfaction. I would nod, feeling the fire in my chest rekindle. Slowly, meticulously, I built a business that nobody in my family suspected. I signed contracts, rented an office space, and furnished it with small touches that reflected my personality. Abstract art that made me think, plants that thrived on my care, and a discreet display of the silver locket on my desk, a reminder of why I was here. Every milestone was measured in quiet triumphs. The first major client who paid without haggling, the first successful product launch, the first real paycheck that made me feel invincible. And always I kept it secret. On social media, I posted modest updates, never showing my success in full. My family didn't need to know I had taken the gift they had abused and turned it into something that gave me power, independence, and respect. By the time Brianna's wedding was scheduled, I had built a life so separate from their expectations that they could never anticipate what was coming. I had transformed the pain of exclusion into a fortress of self-made achievement, and that fortress was about to reveal its walls to the very people who had doubted me most. The day they showed up at my office, I could feel the electricity of anticipation crackling through the air. Brianna, my younger sister, had texted that she and Mom were coming by to discuss some things. The way she phrased it made me smile, ironically. She expected the same Ava who had handed over $55,000 with a smile, who had silently absorbed the betrayal. Jacob squeezed my hand before the door opened, a silent anchor. "Ready," he whispered. "More than they'll ever know," I replied, smoothing the front of my blazer. When they stepped inside, I could see it immediately. Hesitation, confusion, the flicker of arrogance fading. My mother's eyes darted to the sleek marble floors, the walls lined with abstract paintings, and the tall glass shelves displaying awards and framed letters of recognition. Brianna's jaw tightened as she took in the modern leather couch and the minimalist but expensive decor. They expected a modest apartment with a woman who had quietly suffered in silence. Instead, they were standing in a space that reflected independence, intelligence, and accomplishment. And there I was, standing at the center, calm, composed, powerful, but above all, unapologetically me. I let them linger in silence, the weight of their expectations crashing into the reality of what they had never anticipated. Finally, I spoke. My voice was soft but carried authority, the kind that demanded attention. "Hello. Welcome to my office." Mom's hand went to her mouth. Brianna's eyes were wide, a mixture of disbelief and something heavier. Guilt, perhaps, though they would never admit it out loud. I motioned to the office view behind me, where the city skylines stretched endlessly. "You probably expected someone else. Someone struggling, someone waiting for you to tell her what to do." I paused, letting the words sink in. Jacob stood by my side, his presence silent but powerful. I continued. I gave $55,000 for Brianna's wedding. Money that I worked for, saved, and earned. And then I was told to come without my husband. Imagine being told that after everything you've done. Brianna's face went pale, her lips parting to speak, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. I didn't react the way you wanted me to. I didn't beg, I didn't cry, I didn't bend. Instead, I took the opportunity to build a life, a business, and a future for myself and for Jacob. Every contract you see on my wall, every award, every investment, they're mine. Every dollar was earned honestly, every decision my own. I lifted the silver locket from my desk and let it catch the light. This, I said, holding it in my palm, was my grandmother's. She told me never to let anyone shrink who I am. I carried her advice with me through every sleepless night and every challenge. I watched as the room shifted, their confusion, their shame, their realization that the Ava they thought they knew was gone, replaced by someone stronger, smarter, and untouchable. And for the record, I added, voice firmer now. We came with the police when Brianna said I should arrive without Jacob. Because loyalty isn't about exclusion, it's about respect. And respect isn't optional. They staggered back, as if the words physically struck them. Mom's hand shook against the couch. Brianna's eyes glistened, but she didn't dare meet mine. Jacob squeezed my hand, and for the first time in years, I felt completely untethered from their expectations. I smiled, letting the silence hang. This was my moment, mine entirely, and I had finally made them see it. For a long moment, I let them absorb the reality of the room, the truth of my words, the unshakable confidence I had built over the past 2 years. I could see the questions in their eyes. How did she do it? How did we miss it? But more importantly, I could see the understanding dawning, the realization that the girl who once bent to every whim was no longer available to them. I took a slow breath, Jacob standing unwavering by my side. I want to be clear about something, I began. I've forgiven the past. But forgiveness doesn't mean business as usual. If we're going to move forward, it has to be on my terms. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Brianna's fingers twined nervously together. I ignored the discomfort and continued. First, respect my marriage. Jacob is my partner, my equal, and my safety net. Anyone who wishes to have a relationship with me must honor that. Exclusion or undermining of my husband will not be tolerated. Brianna swallowed, her voice caught in her throat. I didn't rush her. I let the weight of that sentence settle. Second, I said, moving to the corner where a small whiteboard held reminders and goals for my company, I will continue to support family, but only if requests are reasonable and only if they come with accountability. No more blind assumptions, no more taking my work or money for granted. I let my eyes travel across their faces, letting each word land like a stone. Third, personal growth matters. I've invested in myself because I knew I deserved it. Anyone who wants to be part of my life needs to pursue their own growth too. That means leaving toxic habits behind, being honest about mistakes, and committing to change. Mom's eyes flickered with guilt, but I didn't soften. Compassion doesn't mean surrender. I will help, but only if these conditions are met. My support comes with boundaries, clarity, and respect. I'm not interested in old dynamics. I'm interested in healthy, empowered relationships. Jacob gave my hand a squeeze. And we mean it, he added, his calm voice reinforcing mine. I could see the fear and the relief mingling in their expressions. Fear because they realized this wasn't a negotiation. They couldn't manipulate me anymore. Relief because they also saw a chance to repair what they had broken. But repair would require effort, humility, and honesty. Finally, I placed the silver locket back on my desk. This, I said softly, reminds me where I started. It reminds me that I am allowed to protect myself, to grow, and to expect the same from others. It is my line in the sand. Mom blinked rapidly, as if the words were cutting away layers of pretense. Brianna's shoulders slumped, She finally seemed to understand that life with me moving forward would not be about convenience or entitlement, but about mutual respect. And in that room, I felt the shift completely. I had the upper hand, yes, but I wielded it not with anger, but with clear boundaries and the confidence of someone who had earned every step of her independence. They could comply, or they could step back. The choice was theirs, but my life, my rules, and my peace were non-negotiable. For the first time in years, I felt fully untouchable, not because of money or status, but because I had finally claimed my power. Weeks passed after the confrontation, and I watched quietly as the first real changes began to unfold. Brianna started taking her own career seriously, enrolling in night classes she had long postponed. Mom began seeing a therapist, something she had mocked in the past, learning to recognize her patterns and, slowly, to apologize in ways that weren't just words. Change was tentative, uneven, but it was there, and that was enough. Jacob and I grew closer, our partnership deeper than ever. We no longer whispered about family drama in corners. We faced it head-on, together as equals. Each evening, I'd place the silver locket on the nightstand, a reminder of the journey I'd endured and the lessons that had carried me here. One quiet Saturday, I found myself alone in the office, reviewing contracts, when I picked up the locket and turned it over in my hands. The engraved words from my grandmother felt heavier now, not with pain, but with pride. Never let them shrink who you are. Your heart is big, but it's yours. I traced the letters with my fingertip and smiled. Every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, every struggle had been worth it. The heart that had once been stretched thin by expectations was now strong, resilient, and free. I realized something important. I didn't need everyone in my family to understand me. I didn't need their validation. What mattered was that I had claimed my life on my own terms, and those who were willing to grow alongside me could step in. The rest? They could watch from the sidelines. Brianna stopped by one evening, hesitantly holding a notebook of her goals. I want to do better, she said softly. For me, for us. I smiled, warmth spreading through me. Then start with yourself, Bri. I'll be here, but you have to do the work. I won't do it for you. Mom nodded quietly, a small, tentative apology lingering in her eyes. I didn't need more than that for now. Words were nothing without action, and action was exactly what they were learning. I leaned back in my chair, looking around the office I had built from scratch, the life I had earned with my own hands. The abstract paintings, the neatly stacked files, the silver locket gleaming in the soft light. They were all pieces of a woman who had refused to be diminished. And I whispered to myself, as I always did when the city lights began to shimmer outside my window. I am more than they ever expected. I am enough. I am mine. The journey had been painful, yes, but it had given me something no family favor, no stolen gratitude could ever take away: my power, my independence, and my peace.